Wow.
All right, welcome everybody to Now That's Debatable. Today we are doing a new episode for you with a very special guest in Jerry Hot Hands Camfor, Christian rapper we've actually met in person. Uh, Used to listen to his music back in the day. And today we're going to be talking kind of as a pivot point about a song that was put out by a artist named Lecrea. It's called Deconstruction. Before we jump into that, I'll have my guest or my co-host Triple A go ahead and shout out our ever so grateful to have partner in
Relic
podcasting,
Media.
Relic Media.
Yeah, Relic Media is a new streaming service. If you have a podcast, you're struggling to get views, hit up Relic Media. We can get you off the no view list and come join the family. All right, that's all I want to say about that.
All right, easy enough. And look at our faces up on the screen. We'll get this started.
Yeah, and you're streaming from your page, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But it's all right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, don't fix it. Don't fix it. We already streamed it. So, all right. So, any of the listeners, I don't know if you have heard the song "Deconstructed" by Lecrea. It's a song where he was talking about his Christian walk. He had said that he had become, I guess, disaffected with Christianity because he was experienced apathy and resistance among some of the church members as he was fighting for civil rights and social justice. In particular, he was very concerned about some of the shootings that was happening around 2015. I think he talked about Mike Brown. I think he mentioned him by name. There's a few other artists. And so he had said at the end of the song that he had mistaken the apathy of some of the members in the church with the church itself. And he had went and did some more studying and relearned how the scripture ought to be taught and how it ought to be understood. And he said it had been corrupted by the West. He didn't say this, but implicit was that I guess the West had corrupted the text to teach very oppressive versions of the scriptures. And he doesn't believe that the scriptures as they were written were meant to teach that. And so he wound up staying with Christianity. So I think he made the wrong decision. I think some of the apathetic and some of the apathetic attitudes of the church and then some of the egregious actions of the government are fully supported by the Bible. And you obviously don't, Hot Hands. What do you want me to call you up here? Injury or?
Is great. That's what
all right. So yeah. So I wanted to there was one, his lyrics in particular. There was one in particular I had saw. He had said that, where is it? I had it written down here. He says, I let the church trauma turn into a God wound. I learned the Western world has twisted up the scriptures. So when I re-enlisted, I learned the Eastern context, the way Jesus meant it.
Right.
So, yeah. And so, I mean, to me, this sounds like he's saying that the apathy of some of the churchgoers towards civil rights and social justice issues is a incorrect interpretation of the Bible. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I think he might even allude to it's not a full depiction of scripture. Like it's missing some key points, and I think he's also trying to point to the Eastern context of scripture as it was intended. You will see that it encapsulates a lot of what is missing, not just in church doctrine here in the West or what's popularly shared, but even as you were just mentioning, even in government and scripture, government and constitution and laws and stuff like that. Like these things aren't perhaps might be influenced by some of the Bible, but same way I might be influenced by Elton John, but you don't hear me, you know what I'm saying, singing down his lyrics. The idea is it has a a better even way to say it. Who's a Project Pat? I might be influenced by Project Pat, but that don't mean I'm talking like this every day. Telling you how I feel when I say. So it's just like I think America in its conception might have had some influences, and as we dive into different people's biographies who constructed the Constitution and laws and stuff like that, we can see there's threads of Christianity, to be even more specific, of biblical thought. But it's a thread. It ain't the whole thing. Like it ain't the Bible. It's just a thread.
Gotcha. So I think, and so when it comes to not even the issues that Lecrea was dealing with, like some of like the issues with police brutality, let's even take it further back, where stuff where like hardly any American would agree stuff like Jim Crow laws were good, or slavery was good, or the mistreatment of women, you know, like before, you know, women's suffrage, like nobody would argue that's good. I think that is fully endorsed by the Bible. Yeah, so like slavery, for instance. Like I don't when we talk about the slavery in the Bible, if you want to be opposed to it, the best you could pull from it, as far as verses that are opposed to slavery, the best you could pull are generalities, such as, you know, treat others as you want to be treated, love your neighbor as yourself, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of like broad principles. But when the Bible talks about slavery, when it gets specific, when it talks about slavery, it's an endorsement. It never prohibits it ever. I give you like several instances of this. It's in like Exodus 22. Like this is right after the 10 Commandments. I mean, and here is God has this opportunity. He has this new nation, right? New people, right? He has this opportunity to like really like set humanity on a path forward and give them, you know, laws about like equality and justice and stuff. And what does he do? Slavery. He gives them slavery. He shows them how you can have slavery. He tells them
God gives human beings slavery. That was God's concept.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, I as an atheist, I don't think it's God's concept. It's in the Bible. So
okay.
Yeah. So I mean, right there, like right. I think it's chapter 21 or 22 is one of those when it talks about how the treatment of slaves. It tells you how long you can beat them. It tells you that like if you're a Hebrew male, you know, you can be enslaved for 6 years, and if you're a female Hebrew slave, then you just can't go. Period. And if you're a non-Hebrew slave, and this is the funny part, like God tells them, he says, purchase your slaves from the heathen around you. Right. And so they're slaves permanently. Like to me, that
is that what you saw?
Well, yeah, it says they're your property forever.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, me coming from a pro-black home as well, in Atlanta, home of civil rights, right? Or a bedrock, a milestone, a huge landmark of civil rights. I was kind of trained to be critical of the Bible with a certain lens as well. And slavery, ain't gonna lie, was one of those that you would hear a lot of different people with, as I would say, maybe combative faiths. They would try to come in and just talk about how, you know, the Christianity is the white man's religion, utilizing slavery as one of the key points of why, like, what kind of God would do it? What kind of, and it's like, oh, well, surely, you know, coaches.
It's a fairly easy argument to make, though, right?
No,
I mean, considering
it's the same way. So it depends on kind of what your end goal would be. A coach doesn't have practice for 4 days a week, shooting practice for his kids to go out there and miss and brick, you know what I'm saying, half-court shots. It's like, hold on, we don't even practice half-court shots. Why are you shooting a half-court shot? Or even 6-footers in the lane, layups, make those. We practice those for you to make them, not to miss them. Now, you will miss them. That just what happens because you're not perfect. So in the same way, I would say I don't think God endorses slavery, let alone constructed slavery or created slavery. I think slavery.
Can I read a passage to you?
Say it again. Can
I read a passage to you?
Yeah. If let me finish my thought, if I can.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry for cutting you up. Go ahead.
You good? Because I want to hear the passage too, and I love it. And I was like, now that you say that, I got to reach way back from my Tony Evans Black Bible. But, I think when we see, so if depending on how we see the effects of sin, as we talked about often in the Bible, as the actual nemesis to God, not even Satan, but sin itself is the nemesis and rival. It's an effect of sin that, you know what I'm saying, these other hateful things come about, not so much from the hand of God themselves. God is like, well, you could have did this way. Same way for that same kid who don't come to practice 4 days a week. Like, hey, we out here working on free throws. You had the opportunity to learn how to shoot a free throw, but you weren't here. So don't ask me to get in the game. 2, when you get in the game and you shoot a free throw and you brick, you can't be like, dang, coach, why you make me miss this shot? Sir, I did not make you miss the shot. You just missed the shot because that was the condition in which you ended up in. But go ahead and read that passage.
Well, to respond to that just briefly, because you say like, so slavery wasn't God's initial plan. It was just the result of sin. So I guess so God was kind of just adjusting his own laws to fit mankind. So, but
I wouldn't say that.
You say you wouldn't.
What God does, he tries to illuminate the horribleness of sin, like the weight of it.
So he was like, do you think he was illuminating the horribleness of slavery by allowing it? He was like, hey, buy slaves and treat them bad. You can beat them as long as they're without in 2 days. That way you understand how bad it is.
I don't think that's what he said. I think he was saying, check out these people who don't follow me. This is the evil that they do. Watch this. You see what they're doing? This is
but it wasn't just them doing it, but he was doing it. But he was like, so we're
the passage.
Okay, sure.
I think it'll help.
Yeah, so the passage, this is Leviticus.
Okay.
Leviticus 25, 44 to 46. Right, it says, your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and make them slaves for life. But you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. And so that last passage is to me is very enlightening, right? Because when it says, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly, like it's a tacit acknowledgement that slavery is ruthless. But you can do it. You can do it, you know, to other humans, not to your Israelites. To me, this is a perfect justification for the type of slavery that we saw. And yeah, I mean, I don't see how it's not like this to me. To me, like if I'm,
he said, don't do it like them folks. We're going ahead and do it though.
He's acknowledging that it's ruthless.
Yeah, and so, the way they doing it, oh, that's heinous.
No. But he says you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. But he says from the beginning, your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. But don't rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. So for the slaves that is coming from abroad, you can rule over them ruthlessly. That's to me that is the implicit message. It's acknowledging that slavery is ruthless.
You got to read the rest of that. Then you got to read the rest of that to draw that type of conclusion, because that's not at all what it's saying. That's just that one spot at that one part. Because what this Levitical law, it's about how you're becoming, like you just said earlier, a new people, right? You're coming a new people, but everybody around here getting contact smoke of how everyone else is living. Like they've got contact and context of how everyone else is doing and living. And God is trying to say like, hey, bro, I don't know. First of all, y'all haven't been following me. So, and the fact that you've been disobeying me, you've already picked up, you know what I'm saying, some of the habits and trends and tendencies of everybody else.
So do you think he was tolerating slavery because the Israelites had already picked up slavery from someone else?
I think God can see the hearts of human beings, and he knows the bent toward them. And so when God sees a bent toward sin, remember, that's like almost an endless, infinite branching off of symptoms of wickedness, and they can vary. So you kind of have to ask yourself, it's kind of like collateral damage. And first of all, I don't know the mind of God, only Holy Spirit can do that. But all I'm saying, like, when I see this scripture, what I see right here is, hey, here's some laws. By the way, some other laws were given to you prior to this. I really shouldn't even have to go these deep into all these laws. But apparently, as we say at a camp that I used to work at, you can have rules because stupid people doing stupid stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but here's, I mean, this rule is a provision to allow people to do stupid stuff, in my opinion. To have slave. So it sounds like your argument that God is allowed.
Check out in Genesis.
Okay, so I just want to follow your train of thought, because it sounds like your argument is that God made a provision for slavery because these people had a predisposition towards sin, and I guess one sin in particular was slavery. So, but God went ahead and forbid other things such as murder, such as stealing, adultery. I mean, he killed the guy for picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
He killed him for left some days.
Yeah, but yet for slavery, he makes provisions for.
That man God a G, don't play with him, man.
Yeah, I became sure. Okay, so what I'm saying is there's other sins that people had predispositions towards that God just explicitly outlawed, like such as murder, theft, etc. Right? However, slavery isn't treated that way at all. If God really had a problem with slavery, to me, it seems it would have been very easy to just say, like, thou shalt not own slaves.
To kind of steelman that, if I can, is if you're familiar with the book of Exodus, you know that this is obviously the exodus of Israelites from the land of Egypt. And in Exodus chapter 20, you get the famous 10 Commandments. And in Exodus chapter 21, it starts with the phrase, "These are the laws that you should set before them." And it starts with a long list of specific laws on how to own, to manipulate, to beat, to release, and treat your slaves. Now, just one chapter before, we have things like, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt love the Lord, like that. You have the 10 Commandments that are widely known throughout Exodus chapter 20.
Man, literally, they were wrongly followed. I promise you want to have the book of Leviticus.
So, like, obviously, like, the book of Leviticus was written towards the tribe of Levi. But, I mean, specifically in Exodus chapter 20, you get the generic laws in the form of the 10 Commandments that get passed down to Moses on Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai, I think. Where he passes down the 10 Commandments and he writes them on a stone tablet, takes them down, sees the people worshiping Baal, he throws down the tablets and breaks them. But these are generic laws that, like, have been passed down to the Israelites, right? Nowhere in them are there specific laws about owning, like, slaves in Exodus chapter 20. Instead, in Exodus chapter 21, that's the first thing we kind of get into. So the question is, like, if we have very generic laws, like if you interpret thou shalt not kill as to thou shalt not murder, right? You would say, like, generically, murder is bad. But you have specific laws on when and how you can own slaves in Exodus chapter 21. So when you say that slavery, by all accounts of Exodus, is permitted, in fact, is given very specific and detailed laws on how to own slaves.
So what I would say to that is, I would say that, first of all, I don't think this is a device that the Lord, again, like I said earlier, I don't think he created this device. It's one that we've already seen present already in Genesis.
I don't think that God created human slavery by any means. I just think he allowed it, and he doesn't.
What we have to see, and that's kind of what you were saying earlier, Josh, when you was like, well, perhaps we see God trying to maybe modify it, you know what I'm saying, trying to reel it back a little bit. But even with that idea of slavery, we have to kind of maybe even define, I don't know if y'all want to go that deep or go that far, is define what this slavery is.
We can define it really quickly. It's just like owning someone as property, and that's exactly how it's treated in the text. It says like
there's actually 3 different types of scripture, and so none of it was chattel slavery what we see today.
Chattel slavery is when you own somebody as property, right?
Correct.
That's exactly what's happening in 44. It literally says they will become your property.
So if you're able to release someone, what it's been likened to, or probably actually is like indentured servitude. You know what I'm saying? Which is for a time.
That's not what's happening here.
Even if you are in debt, you are considered to be a slave to this person because you're ruled. You don't have the freedom to go about your life, your financial life, in whatever way you want because you're indebted to someone. Someone else has a say before you have it. We have to just acknowledge what type of relationship this is between the person.
You're describing indentured servitude. So in verse 39, it says, if any of your fellow Israelites become poor and sell themselves to you, do not make them your slaves. They are to be treated as hired workers and temporary residents among you. Right? Yeah. That's it. So that is indentured servitude. The verse that I read,
but it's still called slavery, though, right?
No, it says you are not to make them your slaves. No, it's literally it says you are to not make them your slaves. The next verse, when it talks about non-Israelites, it says, buy your slaves from the heathen among you. And it says they will become your property. That is chattel slavery. Like whereas our ancestors were owned.
That's also your responsibility. They become your responsibility. As everything you are accountable for by law or by whatever else, that you got to take care of that. So
but still,
your cattle, you know what I'm saying, goes into someone else's barn or something. But replacing whatever your cattle took.
Sure,
and so now you're responsible for whatever that quote unquote slave or person does. So
sure, but I don't really see how that's relevant. I could be missing something here, but
I just want to. So with even if someone like my owner, and so let's say he's responsible for me, right? Mm-hmm. Presumably because I'm his property. To me, that's hardly a justification for it. Because I mean, I don't see how the defense for it, like saying he's responsible for me. But still, the problem is that the Bible tolerates slavery. You see what I'm saying? Like it says it plain. The type of slavery that you had mentioned, chattel slavery, when you become someone's property. It says it right there in verse 44, and it distinguishes it from indentured servitude, which is mentioned a few verses prior.
Mm-hmm.
So this is definitely chattel slavery, the kind that we were taught that you would think about as an American, like the ones that was tolerated, in the 18th century and backwards, right?
Worse.
Yeah. So, it sounds like you said that when someone becomes your property, you're responsible for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see how that's a defense of slavery. Like it's still, you would still acknowledge that this is defense of slavery, right?
You saying, huh? Okay, you're so right. I'll see you later. Bye. So you're saying is that in a defense?
Yeah. Well, it's was that you? I don't see how that was relevant. You said when somebody owns a slave, they're responsible for them.
Correct.
I don't see how that's relevant.
Well, no, it's not that I'm going point by point. What I'm more so saying is I'm trying to color in or pencil in some of the framework of how we are understanding slavery. And if I'm being honest, I'm more so explaining or even expressing how I came to understand and wrap my mind around slavery. And it is using the passages exactly what you were just saying. Because first of all, my first thing is this that I'm recognizing is that human beings, according to how God created them, man, they're meant to be in relationship with God. Point blank, period. You know what I'm saying? So I can't get away from that. I can't let my stream of thought get away from that thought that I'm supposed to be connected and in love with this dude who's going to in turn love me back. And we're supposed to spend the rest of eternity doing just that. Now, when I misstep that and I don't do that, well, man, it's an endless list of consequences. Consequences meaning causations.
I'm granted. I'm tracking.
After that, you know what I'm saying? And so, so when I look at the Bible, I'm always looking at how this story of how God is trying to get human beings to come back into a loving relationship with Him. Now, also understanding the threats, the things that threaten that connection, that reconnection, that reconciliation with God. And the thing that risks that is the human heart that's tainted by sin. That sinful trait that causes us to be selfish, to look out for our own self-interest, to look out for not the next person, but for me and what I got going on. So when I think about slavery, period, whether it's justified or not, you know what I'm saying, whether there's a defense for it in the Bible or not, anything in this situation is showing me I don't feel like this is loving. And I think you would agree too. And I think that's the point you're pointing to. So I'm not going to spend, I wouldn't spend a lot of my time saying how God, justified slavery or was in favor of slavery. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think he was. I think he's like, yo, this junk is stupid. It's legit.
Well, sure. But do you believe God felt that way about murder?
I feel like God feels that way about sin. God feels that way about sin.
It seems like he treats it differently.
I can go to name sin 1,322. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure. But
for number 2.
Okay, but so God felt that way about sin in general. So, and you think slavery and both murder are both sins, right?
I believe it is a byproduct of sin.
Okay. You don't think slavery and murder, you think that they're byproducts of sin. You don't think they're sins themselves.
I think they're byproducts of sin, of living in a sinful world. Correct.
Okay, so God went out of his way to forbid murder. Like, it's very obvious he's against it.
Forbid murder?
Yeah. Like, it's in the 10 Commandments. Like, it's like the first set of laws.
That's forbidding. That's not like humans have free agency to do what they want.
No. But what I'm saying is, okay, he made a law, like a prescriptive law, forbidding murder. Like he could have done it. He easily done that with slavery, and he doesn't. Instead, he's like, you can buy your slaves.
With any of that, he's showing what's in bounds, what's out of bounds. So when you start
talking
about
slavery is in bounds.
When you talk about what the 10 Commandments is, like all of it is just showing you, man, how to connect to me, how to reach to me, how to reconcile back to me. And these are the things to do that get you back to me. And these other things are things that just push you further away from me.
So do you think that owning slaves brings you closer to God? Because it seems to be endorsed throughout most of the Old Testament.
You got to ask the individual that. So do you feel like owning slaves will bring you closer to God?
I don't believe in a God, but it seems that your Bible's God does condone slavery. So my question is, do you think it would be better if you own slaves?
Are you asking me now?
Yeah, would you think it would be better for your relationship with God to own slaves?
Correct. I believe it would. It depends on the circumstance.
So would you treat your slaves? Would you treat your slaves like they did in the Old Testament?
Bro. Say it again. So
would you treat your slaves like they did in the Old Testament, where you can beat them?
Didn't mean that. Treat my slaves. So it depends on what I got going on.
Can you beat them as long as they don't die within a day or two?
Some nice beds. You know what I'm talking about? I want them to get up, be able to wash their face when they need to. I want them to be able to.
Can you beat them?
Because at the end of the day, we gotta go back. That's the name of the game.
Can you beat them?
Would I beat them?
No. Can you beat them?
Can I beat them? Yeah. If I feel so inclined, they could beat me too.
And you think that's in line with like biblical love?
The Bible allows you to beat them.
So the Bible would allow them to slap me like I can slap them.
No, it doesn't say anything like that. No, but there's a rule.
What you can't do, what you can't do right now is you can't just say, like, I think we're taking so many elements out of this when we look at this. We forget that you're talking about two different human beings who have the capability and capacity to do whatever they want. The question is, will they? Same way when we saw slavery at any time. You can run if you want to. You can revolt if you want to. But then you're asking, well, what does God, prescribe?
Okay, but I mean, I think the discussion of free will is something that we could take on a different day in general. But like in general, when let me kind of make it.
That is the component that's present here.
I'm not denying it is, but let me ask you something, right? You live in the United States, right? You say you're from Atlanta, right? So, like in the United States, it's illegal for you to kill other people, right? That's a
According
law.
to who?
According to the United States government, the government which you currently reside under.
White folks. All right, cool.
Yeah. That one. That one.
Yeah, I mean, there's black legislators too. I know one, but
you know white folks.
I know black legislator. I know one.
Okay, we're talking about today.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, it is unlawful to murder in the United States.
In the United States, it's unlawful to murder, right? That's a prescribed law.
Why is it unlawful to murder somebody?
Well, I mean, whoever decided to make that a law passed it into law a long time ago. Okay, right? It's not relevant.
They thought that.
Well, it's not really relevant to the question or where I'm going with this.
Y'all asking me about murder?
Well, yeah, I'm asking you, like, do you abide by the law in the United States not to murder people? No. So you go out and murder people.
Man, if I give me an opportunity.
Well, you see what I'm saying? Like, see how dishonest you're being?
You said I'm being dishonest.
Bro, come on. Okay, so
you said you would own slaves, and then you said you're not abiding by the law of not murdering people?
Bro, you don't even know me, bro. What you saying?
Bro. Okay, all right. No. Hold on, guys. So
answer the question where you wanted me to.
Okay, so like,
I'm asking you to answer honestly. That's all.
Yes.
What do you think I just did?
Okay, so obviously you don't go around murdering people.
So,
what I'm saying, man. You finna look. Then you finna out. What is it called? What they call this? Incriminating evidence. You creating incriminating evidence for me.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'll put it out this way to say that we have, this is by no means a confession or
you see that? Ooh, that beep 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 beep. Go ahead, man. I'm listening.
All right. So by no means is this a confession or admissions of evidence or guilt. However, I assume that you don't go out murdering people.
Yeah, I ain't found the right opportunity.
Okay, but you have free will, right? You could if you wanted to.
Yeah, I express
wouldn't it still be illegal though?
According to America, it would be.
Right, but the country that you live under, it would be illegal there. Right.
Yeah.
So in the Bible, I would say that like even if you have free will, you could own slaves. But it wouldn't be illegal. It wouldn't even be a sin because the Bible says it's okay.
Well, the idea is, so again, you're kind of having to understand like what. So when we're using those words of sin, we got to say what is sin.
Well, yeah, I mean, like slavery is not a sin according to the Bible.
Can we stop? Can we stop here? I'm not concerned about sin. Like I'm not religious. Like nor is facade. Like what we're concerned about is like slavery, and it seems. Like it seems
asking moral questions about slavery, whether it's good or bad, but how you gonna determine what's good or bad and for who?
Well, okay, but owning another person is that good or bad?
For who? If it's me, if I'm owning them,
so
if my stuff getting bad, that's a good thing for me. You got to understand that, bro.
Yeah. All right.
So would you promote the slavery of the 1800s in America? Because would you promote the slavery in America in the 1800s?
Who am I in that situation? Don't you know black people?
I'm asking right now in general because it wasn't it really good for the people with plantations?
Let's
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Let's pivot.
So that's what I'm saying. So if you ask a person about slavery, you have to ask them, are they being the benefactor of slavery? Or are they getting the shitty end of the stick?
I can tell you, no matter what side of the road I would be on, owning another person's bad.
You would rather be on the other side to be enslaved?
I would rather slaves not exist.
I'd rather like not have slaves. So
yeah. So let's be the slave or be the slave owner.
I'd rather be neither. I'd rather slavery didn't exist.
What I would do, I would choose the slave owner and then let my slave go, and then say like God's laws were stupid.
So there you go. There you go. So that's all I was saying earlier. So when he asked me if I could own slaves, I said yes. Then y'all started being like, oh,
Well,
but you just said if I were a slave owner, I would own a slave and then I would let him go.
No. Well, you so like you were asking like this question that was in the form of a dichotomy. Like whereas like you asked Fasad if he wanted to own slaves. Of course, he doesn't want to own slave. But then you were forcing it to two answers. You either be the slave or the slave owner. So I was just gonna I'd pick the owner and just let the slave go. Say it again.
So why would that question be posed to me if I can't pose it to him?
Well, I mean, I think he was trying to get to a point. But let's
just make a point. You can make the point without asking me. That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
so when you ask me, then it's
okay. Well, I think our point was just kind of something like this. So like, if God was just making provisions for man's sinful nature, he didn't do that with other laws, with like rape. Well, actually, rape is different. Rape is actually not forbidden in the Bible. We can get to that. But with like murder, with like stealing, like God went out of his way to explicitly prohibit those things, but he didn't treat slavery that way. So for many concepts, if we have like, let's say you have a slaveholder and a abolitionist, they're in debate and they're trying to they're appealing to the Bible for their argument. The slaveholder is going to have a much more hermeneutical, firm foundation from just looking at the Bible.
Yeah.
The best the abolitionist is going to pull from is generalities. He's going to say, oh, well, love your neighbor as yourself. Treat others as you want to be treated. But then the slaveholder can say, well, that may be the case for how individuals, but when we're talking about a government, if it ought to allow slavery, surely it can. Because every instance where it's talked about, it is allowed. We can even talk about passages in the New Testament where Paul tells a slave to return to his master. He tells slaves to obey them. Like so it seems to be pro-slavery. So how about this? What
does slavery provide though?
What slavery provide?
Sometimes in certain situations, slavery.
So to me,
people couldn't do by themselves.
Sure. I don't want
themselves in this free world.
I don't want to be like too graphic here, but considering this show, we get graphic. Like if I was to pull out a homeless person, I find a homeless person in the middle of the street, and I was to kidnap them, and then treat them as my property, as in do whatever I wanted to them. To me, saying that they couldn't provide shelter and food on their own is not a reason for me to. It's not a justification for me to keep them enslaved. Like this is obviously immoral. Just leave them be.
I don't know.
Really? So we can enslave people who.
You also have to ask the other person who's being like, bruh, I don't know why y'all not considering a person that's in slavery. Like we have accounts of people that were free, but then say, I don't even want to go nowhere.
Well,
okay. People can say, well, that's Stockholm syndrome. But you also have people that just go in and say, bro, I can't do for myself.
Sure. So all right. So
you do for me. Is that not part of the argument? Is that not part of the conversation?
Sure. Like I thought we were on the same page of slavery. I guess we're not. Like I think slavery is immoral. So but we at least acknowledge the point. Huh? You're the same.
It can be. I would agree and said it can be.
It can be. Okay. Well, all right. So owning people as property, is that a form of slavery that's immoral?
It can be.
So can you give me an immoral example of owning someone as property?
I mean, yeah, you show me where there is someone who is looking out on the behalf. I'm sorry, but you want me to quote it? You want me to give you a link? You want me to give you?
Yeah, just give me some sort of hypothetical.
I didn't come prepared because I didn't know we was going to be talking about slavery.
Well, so I didn't intend on talking about it this long. We were just talking about civil rights, and what the point that I was really trying to make was so Lecrea was concerned about some of the police killings, right? And that's really controversial. And the point that I was going to make is the Bible is not on his side on this. It's not on the side of social justice or civil rights. And I was going to point the point that I was going to make was I was going to point to the most egregious examples like slavery and show how even with these egregious examples back in like 18th century, the Bible was not on our side. And it doesn't stop there. The Bible's not on your side with the civil rights.
Like our side is black people. Our side, is that what you're talking about?
Well, not just well. I don't think it's on the side of anybody. Like people call it a white man's religion. I mean, if you look all in Europe, white people were suffering by the millions due to Christianity, right? They were dying in wars and for like stupid reasons for religions and all that kind of stuff. So like, I don't think it call it a white man's religion. I don't think like anybody should be following it. But it's so, but it's definitely not on a.
Oh snap! We still there? Yo! Come back.
Yeah, you froze.
I think that's just me. I'm glad you're there. Outside.
Okay, yeah. Well, I was gonna say like it's not just for black people, but it's not on the side of any oppressed or marginalized group. And so I think slavery is a great example of that. I was reading one passage not too long ago. Well, this actually was a long ago because like I was still a Christian, but I had so do you remember when David he tried to build a temple?
Yeah.
And God wouldn't let him build the temple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember the reason why he wouldn't let him build the temple?
Can't point to it.
Yeah, it was basically because his hands had shed blood, and this wasn't anything to do with the Bathsheba thing. Like
you're right, the Hittite, the one he got killed.
Yeah, but it wasn't about that. It was about him just being a man of war. He was a warrior king, and God didn't want that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, and so so Solomon builds the temple, and one of the types of form of labor that he used to build a temple was slavery. And so you have the wisest man who ever lived using slave labor to build a temple for the holy God. And it's just fully endorsed. And I just think about like what kind of message does that send? What kind of message does that send for oppressed people? To in short, the apathy that we see from your evangelical right that says, you know what? Oh, that black person got shot because he should have just obeyed the law, or you know, like any sort of like the some of the like abhorrent like racist opinions that some of these right wingers you see on the internet. Looking at the Bible, I don't see how you can say that they're wrong. Like it seems to be on their side. So
I'm following.
Yeah. So okay. So I mean, like, tell me, like, what passage? This is why I say Lecrea got it wrong. If this is what he was most concerned with, he should have just left it, because Christianity is not on the side. Like the West was not taking this out of context. The Bible, in its context, supports oppression for marginalized groups. So like, if you didn't have you done like much studying like on like how Israel ran as a nation, like back in ancient Israel. So like it was just pretty much an apartheid.
The timeline we talking when?
Well, if you just look at the laws that was written for them, like it's an apartheid government.
Biblical times.
Yes, biblical times. Yes. Like it's an apartheid government, right? So like even if you were a foreign national, when you acquire property, you couldn't own it for forever, right? You know, after so many years, it'd be returned back to a Israelite. You know, Jubilee, right? We talked about like slavery. It was only 6 years if you were an Israelite, forever if you're a foreign national. So there's another, like, it's the type of government that we saw in South Africa. I don't see how you can look at the Bible and then use that as a justification to go against the apartheid governments or Jim Crow laws, etc.
And I think that's a very good point in what you bring up, because it's almost saying if that were the only thing Lecrea were considering, then kind of his hope would just fall apart, because as you're saying, the Bible would very much double stamp that idea.
Yeah,
so I think, but that's why I think there's other components about the Bible that are also piercing truths that, in a lot of ways, they completely obliterate, eclipse, and overshadow and eclipse the heinous thing we see about human beings treating the other in an undignified way. So I think we would see that as a common theme throughout the Bible and throughout the ages. And so, to your point, as the Bible documents that heinous act, in the series that follow after. We're seeing that in Lecrea, I could imagine as maybe I felt, or even maybe similar to how you felt. You felt like, as you said earlier, it's immoral. Certain things are immoral. It hits you in a certain way. It's like, yo, that can't be good. There's no way that can be good. Mm-hmm. And so I would like to think, as I think I've kind of heard him articulate, that those were the things that would crush him, because you would continue to hear these evangelicals also not look out for the other. So although they're not, enslaving someone, or they themselves aren't pulling the trigger, or they themselves aren't throwing out the case, of the what do you call it? The assailants for Trayvon Martin and for Philon Castile, because they're not the ones personally doing it. But it's like, yeah, but you ain't really coming to the defense of the slain, or the victims. So in a lot of ways, that still feels quite familiar, as if it resembles the hatred that's found in this book. So I think the things that we do have in common when we see our reality is we see, as I see it, we see sin running amok. And so I think, again, I'm not Lecrea, nor am I Lecrea representative, defense attorney, or publicist. You know what I mean? I think there are hard truths to wrestle with, for sure, as a Black man, when you start considering the times from, I guess what they were saying, 2016 or 2014 to even 2020, 2021. Those things are hard to stomach. And so as you're processing that, it's kind of what the whole deconstruction track is about. Forgive me if I'm rumbling. But it's about how do I process first of all, what I'm seeing, secondly, what I'm experiencing internally, and then thirdly, to your point, like how does that reconcile in the Bible? Like, what do I see that as? And so it would depend on the individual. And as I've even shared with some of my friends that have stepped away from the faith, I'm like, hey, it is what it is. Do what you got to do. If you need to go find answers, go find them. I'm like, I'm good. My answers are found. But everybody needs to find their own reason to be reconciled back to God, and then it's even to your point, like, even if you believe there's a God. So dealing with human beings, that is a very real, upfront, present thing that you can't get, you can't get rid of that. You know what I'm saying? You can't ignore that. And so whether he got it right or wrong, I think that brother is in a good place, as he would even describe a better place. Now that he's taking that walk around the block, he's taking time to dialogue with other people who've been thinking similar thoughts, but maybe they've even, come to different conclusions. I think that's the exercise of it all, is to get it off your chest, get it out of your mind, to put it, in the air and spin it around and evaluate it.
Sure, but like the people that Lecrea has spent all these years arguing against, right? The Christians who weren't on his side on this issue, like he says in the song that they were taking it out of context. They weren't. Like, and I mean, not just them. I mean, we can go all the way back to like the slavery thing. I don't want to go back to that topic. So we can talk about like women's suffrage, people that oppose women's suffrage. I don't see any support for equality of women in the Bible. Like there's different laws. For instance, like when we're talking about, I don't want to talk about slavery, but with regard to Hebrew slavery, the males were free after 6 years. The females weren't. Right? There's a law. If say it again,
cold world out there for a female.
Yeah, I mean that's God's problem. Maybe like have some. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, what it is, because there was this view about women. Not as much anymore, but especially back then when the text was written, that women have some sort of inferior place in society, and that was reaffirmed throughout the Bible. I don't see argument against it. For instance, like if a man thought his wife was cheating, right? He could take her to the temple, and he could force her to drink this magic concoction. The priest would put dust from the temple in it, and she would drink the magic stuff, and it would force her to have an abortion, right? And then make her barren. Like there was no similar law for the men. If the woman thought,
I think that's a very good point. I think that's a very good point of evil, of sin, present in human beings.
No, okay, but no. So this is a law from God. So like men and women cheat, right?
Men and women. Well, first of all, black men don't cheat. We got to establish that.
Okay, all right. So these were some.
I'm white.
These
I
were
cheat.
not these were Israelites. So this can happen both ways. Like to me, if I was going to incorporate, like I think this law is stupid, right? To abort a kid, force a woman to abort a pregnancy because of this. But if this is going to be incorporated, you would think it'd be incorporated both ways. Like wouldn't you say that only allowing the man to do this would be misogynistic? You don't think it's discriminatory?
Only allowing the man to get away with it or to behave that way? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the man. Well, so if he suspects, not if she's actually in fact cheating, but if he suspects, he can force her to go into the temple and drink some magic dust juice.
Yeah.
And then and then if she actually cheated, it's going to swell her organs. She's going to go barren, and then as a result, abort the child if she's actually pregnant. There's no similar law.
What is that?
My daughter was just talking. Let's find this passage. Help me find it really quick. If
yeah, give me 1 second, I'll find it.
Yep, it is.
Also, I think it's dope that y'all two, you know what I'm saying, y'all collabing with this, that y'all can study together and walk together with that, and that's cool.
Shit, man. Yeah.
So Numbers chapter 5, starting at verse 11.
Numbers 5.
Yeah,
saying chapter 5? Chapter 5.
Yeah, Numbers 5, and then down in verse 16, it says, "The priest shall bring her and have her stand before the Lord, and he shall take some holy water in a clay jar, and put some dust from the tabernacle floor into the water. After the priest has had the woman stand before the Lord, he shall loosen her hair, and place her hands in the reminder offering, the grain offering for jealousy, while he himself holds the water that brings a curse. And the priest shall put the woman under oath and say to her, if no man has had sexual relations with you, and you have not gone astray and become impure while married to your husband, this bitter water may not curse you or to harm you."
Okay.
Yeah, so she's forced to drink a magic potion because she's been suspected of cheating. Like you would, like, regardless of the fact that this is just a stupid law, but you would think it would at least go both ways. Why not?
Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't stop there. Have you seen like the passage where it talks about rape? It says if a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay her 50 shekels of silver. I'm sorry, he shall pay the father 50 shekels of silver, and he must marry the young woman, for he has violated her. He can never divorce her as long as he lives. And I've had Christians try to say that this is like a punishment for the man, but I mean, like, presumably God isn't stupid, right? So if this law seems to be a punishment for the female as well, even if maybe the guy doesn't want to marry the woman he just raped, sure, but you see how this could be
right there?
Say it again.
That was the rape passage you were talking about?
Yeah. That's in Deuteronomy chapter 22.
22.
Yep. Yeah. Verse 28 and 29.
Good looking out.
Yep. He said he must marry. So he pays. So as repayment, so to pay for his sins, he pays the father 50 shekels of silver.
I remember that.
And then he has to marry the woman. The woman's completely left out. I mean, at least give her a shekel of silver, right, or something. Like she doesn't get anything. Like it's like she's not considered. So like, and if you read through the rest of the passage, the context is that because she was raped and she lost her virginity, she is of no value to the father anymore. So he's lost some money. So he's been paying that for 50 shekels of silver, the equivalent of like a really cheap car.
Yeah. Fun fact on the historicity of this passage that led all the way into modernity is, if you're familiar with the term dowry, that is a gift that is given by the family of the groom to the family of the bride as essentially a payment for letting them marry their daughter. This used to happen a lot back in the days of arranged marriages. In fact, it still happens in countries that allow for arranged marriages. And a lot of people consider that's where the diamond ring and modern proposals come from. That it's literally a dowry.
What do you think about that passage though? Like, is it? I mean, considering how it treats women.
Where, Deuteronomy 22?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, I mean, like, it seems to be a pretty stupid punishment for rape.
Well, so the difficult part for me to understand is it's kind of the context of that day, like what's happening, what's going on around their tribe, in their tribes. What are the influence of these males? What's the influence of these females? What's their behavior? Like, what are the practices of these things?
I couldn't.
Nothing is just brought out of thin air. Remember, I told you earlier, being at a camp, working as a camp director. We just don't bring any rules up for no reason. Like, you know what?
Yeah, but like
playing Harry Potter on your Game Boy Advance. Like, we got PS5. Why'd you say Game Boy Advance? For whatever reason, it's a rule.
I can't imagine a context of where this law is the best answer or is even remotely a good answer. Like, I cannot think of it. Like, what would be the scenario?
I think that would point to our limited array of knowledge.
well, if something, what if it's not just our limited knowledge? What if it's in fact it's just a stupid law? Like, so if
it's so easy for us to critique days of old because of where we are now. Like, all of our mindset has been framed around where we currently are.
But this isn't things of old. This isn't like this is coming from God. Right? That you would expect like some really good, profound law. Say it again.
I said, yeah, you were saying it comes from God, as if that was supposed to be easier for me to understand or easier for you to understand.
I mean,
no, I think
regardless, not that it's easier to understand, that it ought to be like a moral law. Like I can, in 30 seconds, I can come up with a better rape law. Like, how about this? And he just pays 50 shekels of silver and that's it. He's not even forced to marry her. That is a better law than what you have here. That way she's not forced to marry her rapist.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think it's a very good way of trying to wrap your mind around that situation in hindsight, because that's all we got from these texts. These texts give us a very small glimpse into a window of a world that's extremely vast. And that's what I'm saying. In 2023, way beyond our understanding of what was even there. So we got nerds sitting up in colleges trying to figure out the exact context of each thing. And to your point, you might be saying, well, how bad could it be for it to have to come to this? And that's just what I'm saying. If you're asking me, I don't know enough about this time to have to be like, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, God. You know,
can I make a really simple point though? Mm-hmm. You know who shouldn't or doesn't have the problem of context if he exists? You're the God who inspired the Bible. He was there when it was supposedly written, and he could have made it very clear on laws regarding slavery and rape, on especially now living in a more quote-unquote woke culture, if you will. But I don't even think woke is necessary. I think just living in a culture that, just has common decency. Essentially to do things against, make laws against slavery and rape where you don't have to worry about it if this God is timeless.
Well, you can't do it. Why humans can't do it?
They do, and they did.
We have. I can show you laws from all 50 states and all the different countries, and I guarantee you that all of their laws on rape are better than this.
Okay, so shout out to humans then. Then you just give humans props and leave that man alone. If that man trashing his job, then it is what it is.
But that the person that they're going against is your God. What you're saying is that humans are better at writing laws than your omniscient God.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's how you feel, I agree. If that's what you come to the conclusion of,
well, I don't. Do you think it's an irrational conclusion to come to?
what, the humans are better
At writing
making
laws than an omniscient God?
I don't think that would be better. I think if they do a very good job, it's because he allowed them to. He gave them the ability to understand wisdom and to understand what's fair, what's right, and what's just. And so what we might see as God not getting it right, well, he gave us everything we needed. Like, we made in his image. So if we end up doing a better job than him, it's only because he gave us what we got. I.e., if LeBron happened to be better than Jordan, I guess it is what it is. You wouldn't have no LeBron if you want no Jordan.
So so it sounds like you're saying that God gave me the wisdom to recognize that his laws are stupid.
Yeah, if that's the conclusion you came to, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what it sounds like you said. I mean, quite literally, you're saying God, you're saying the wisdom that people use to write better laws, rape laws in particular. You said that came from God as well. So it's okay. So because, all right, so God made me smart enough to realize that is completely inept when it comes to writing rape laws or slavery laws.
But so that also, like, when I come to texts like this, I could zero in on, like, being, like you said, a legislative person, you know what I'm saying, to be a lawyer, to be on this and that, and be like, hey, I want this to be my main focal point. When it's just like, bro, a lot of people don't even know these parts of scripture where you pointing at, which I think is dynamic. You know what I'm saying? The fact that y'all even unpacking this, because I think it'll require more people. Oh, shoot, what that junk say? Let me dive in some more. Yet at the same time, this is a drop in the bucket, you know what I'm saying, of where he has been with humans. And I just think it's interesting how when every time humans do some shitty, there's like God gets, you know what I'm saying, blamed for it in a sense, because it happened, quote unquote, under his watch, where it's like, well, the responsibility of the motherfucker that did it. It's
well,
like,
I wouldn't.
That's also how it's intended. Humans weren't supposed to get off clean because there is a scapegoat, and that scapegoat is in Jesus. And so, but people don't want to, like, go to that end result of that spiritual law. Like, you can take the text law, you can take natural law, you can take written laws, but there's also a spiritual component that, I don't know, if you can't equate that in there, I think we do ourselves a disservice of when we trying to see, like, how does this fit in only human law? You're right, in human law, that just gonna sound retarded. It ain't gonna make no damn sense. But you got to take in the whole of all of it, and it's a creation, like, it's a story and it's a journey. So this is the horrible part of the journey, straight up. And that's why I'm agreeing with you. I'm like, yeah, that don't sound like a good law, bro. You're right. She got to drink what? Oh, it do what to her? Kidneys? I'm like, yeah, that don't sound too good. So if you're saying, hey, man, I can give you a better law in 5 minutes, or I can point to 3 other countries and states and counties that come up with better laws than this. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, they've had enough practice, 2,000 plus years to practice. It should
I don't think it would take much practice. I think, like, I have a 2-year-old over here. I mean, I think she
can't come up with no better rape law.
I think if we were to explain it to her.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, that's a very good point. If you were to explain to her, so you're creating a framework of how those things happen.
Yes, but like, you wouldn't think you have to explain, but you wouldn't think you have to explain it to God. Like, he already knew this, and here he is. Here he is.
The framework, though.
I mean, I'm very familiar with the framework. I mean, I was a Christian for like a decade and a half.
You said for how long?
Like a decade and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I
probably
I mean,
the same.
Hey, but he been God for a minute, bro. And this idea.
So, like, to go back on your point a little bit, when it comes to people blaming God, at least atheists don't do that because we don't think he exists. But I noticed earlier, like a few minutes before that, you said that, like, oh, God gave people the wisdom to write better laws. Seems that, like, you want to point out to when people do things well, you point to God as well. Like, why can't they both go both ways?
Yeah,
like, I don't necessarily point to God's failures because I don't necessarily think he exists. But, like, my point is, if you're trying to use the Bible to defend something, it's not a really good it doesn't have really good arguments against things like slavery or even rape. Like it's
Well,
pretty
I
poor.
don't think it's meant to be. Yeah, I don't think it's meant to be, which is why it wouldn't be. So I agree with you. The Bible isn't meant to be a defense for anything that we're arguing today. I think the Bible, if anything, is speaking of how human beings need a savior, because look how daggum trash it is when humans run it.
So would you say that's a poor?
You've been running it too.
Would you say it's a poor use of getting to something like morality?
Say that again. What are you asking me?
Would you say that it's like it would be poor to use it for something like morality?
The Bible is a poor.
Would you say it would be poor to use it to establish or dictate your morality?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, and see, I think that's what y'all were pointing to earlier, is saying people who use the Bible as, you know what I'm saying, that standard. You know what I'm saying? And I think it takes, first of all, I would use it not as an indicator, you know what I'm saying, to what morality looks like. Because I don't think morality is a set line. I mean, is a set list of commands, you know what I'm saying, and laws and things like that. Because as I understand the law in the Bible, the law shows us you flawed and you fucked up. Like, bro, you ain't gonna get it right. Like, that is the whole point of the law, is to show us without Jesus, you're incapable of being the true human I created you to be. That's why I'm showing you. So the same way when y'all look at this law and be like, that don't make sense. And God, I feel like God is saying, you know what, you're right. None of this makes sense, which is why I was ready to get rid of it in the first place. In fact, I was about to be about it. I did it one time. I do it again. I promise I'll do it again. Try my gangster. And so it's just like, yeah, humans are constantly getting this junk wrong. And my patience is
getting what wrong? Like morality wrong or the Bible wrong?
So I think that idea of morality, I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong, is this idea of, is something right or wrong? Is that right?
Yeah.
So,
but I was just asking what you were referring to,
because I think, morality is right and wrong by who? Like, that's why I would give y'all the thumbs up if you're saying, well, who's determining what's moral, what's right and wrong? If we determine it, I'm like, yeah, I agree with you. If it sounds good to you, it sounds good to you. But if you ask me what God if God is saying what's right and wrong, God gonna be like, I don't know if that fly for me. And we're trying, I think, to a lot of time to understand the heart and mind of God, if he even exists. So I think part of us even trying to connect with that idea of if he even exists is not gonna help us try to make sense of none of this. Because you take the main factor that try to piece this together.
I wouldn't say that right and wrong is determined by either of us, like by us or God. It's just determined by well-being, and being raped isn't good for people. Being
the person that's stroking.
Okay, well, it's not good for the person that's being stroked.
Yeah, so, but that's what I'm saying. So it was good, but it's good.
No. But we're talking about everybody. You gotta consider everybody. So we can't just consider. We can't just consider them.
Everybody's gotta chime in on what they think is right or wrong.
So coming from the context of the Bible, it probably would be okay if we're going to ignore, the health of women. All right. So I guess from the male's perspective, who's usually the one doing the raping, it might be good. I could see the Bible saying something like that. I wouldn't even be surprised. But
I'm just asking.
Well, yeah, they can. I say usually.
Okay,
I said usually, but I wouldn't be surprised, considering the way that it treats for the way that it treats the way when men rape women. You pay a price. You pay something to the father, and then you get to.
Let me just ask you a question. This was a little bit off, and I'll admit this is a little bit off, because I'm letting y'all guide the conversation. But this one I want to ask: So yes, you believe women are capable of raping someone?
Yeah, sure.
Does the Bible capture an incident where a woman has raped someone?
No, I mean I can only think of one incident where a rape happens at all, and that's with Absalom and his sister.
And it's yeah. So do we think that's not possible?
I guess technically you could also point to Noah after the flood. Technically,
that's it doesn't say that though.
It kind of implies.
It implies something dirty. He got a hand job.
This is something weird, but go ahead, make your point though.
Yeah, I was just saying. Because I don't think the Bible took inventory on what evil and atrocities were done. That, you know what I'm saying, it's not so much saying that, well, we didn't capture this one, so this one just lives in a gray area, a forever gray area.
Well,
Just
sure,
like,
but the ones that it did capture, it did a really bad job of detailing how it ought to be treated. Like, for instance, rape,
no,
for
no, no,
instance.
I think it does. And so that's when y'all were talking about earlier about the Ten Commandments.
Mhm.
I like before the Ten Commandments, you still had commands like from the Lord, like the things that identify who God is, and folks
Yeah.
do it. Folks
So
do
like
it.
I wouldn't say that every command in the Bible is bad. So sure, there could be commands from God that could be good. But
Genius. Would you even say genius? Would you go that
say it
far?
again.
Would you even go as far as saying they're genius?
Who's a genius?
I'm gonna answer that one in the sense of no, I don't think they're genius. I think common like understanding of well-being would probably be
common. Why would you think they would be common?
Like, who are we talking about?
So, for instance, like murder.
Who are we talking about? Like, do I think is a genius?
God for setting in the laws of murder.
Go ahead,
do I think? Do we think God would be a genius?
For size, what you said earlier.
I think he was implying that you think God would be a genius for setting in certain laws in place. But I was saying I wouldn't say that God would have to be a genius to set in laws against things like murder.
Yeah, I mean, like you can't find a single culture where murder is allowed.
But the reason why I'm saying is why
it seems to be because it seems to kind of just be common sense. Like, so because people don't want to be murdered, so we make laws outlawing it.
There you go. It conflicts with their desire to live.
Well, yeah, and I also like their rape laws conflict with my desire to not be raped. But the Bible doesn't handle that.
Imagine a dude has been pinned up in that thing for 25 plus years.
Hey, so, all right, so hold on. All right, I don't want to get us banned from. I don't want to get us banned from YouTube. Hold on, no, I don't want to get us banned from YouTube. Okay, so I want to
right. Hold on.
We had hold on, no. So like so it brings back to like civil rights, right? So here's a passage on Romans 13, right? So long story, this passage right here is what led me away from Christianity. Like, this wasn't the precipitating incident, but like this is what opened the door to other things. And then it was like, after looking at this, like a week later I was an atheist. So but it's a long story, so don't be like, oh, I read this one passage and I left Christianity.
Yeah, but the crazy thing is, I'd love to hear the story another time. But yeah,
sure.
I'm all ears. I'm all ears.
Definitely. So it says, let everyone be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. And those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Right. So it goes on to say, for rulers hold no terror for those who do right. That's wrong, obviously, because the rulers often hold terror for those who do right. But when we talk about like civil rights, right? Especially the type of civil rights that's most familiar with us, like in America, with African Americans. This seems to go in stark contrast to what they were fighting for. They should have pretty much just sit down, shut up, and just accepted what was happening. Did you ever read the letter from a Birmingham jail?
Mm-hmm.
So Martin Luther King, he was responding to this letter that he had gotten from this white church because he was very frustrated because they weren't helping him, fight for civil rights, and they were telling him, hey, just focus on the gospel. This stuff will happen in time, but right now this is the law. This seems to support what they were arguing for. Like this is an indictment of the civil rights movement. The people who was trying to change the laws like Jim Crow, like, they were wrong, according to this passage.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? It's like, so this is a great example of how completely like going against what Lecrea was standing for. And this is why I think he should if that was what he's most concerned about, he should have just left it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I like that part in 13 where it says, love one another, for the one who loves another has fulfilled the law. The commandments: do not commit adultery, do not murder, do not steal, do not covet, and any other commandment are summed up by this commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to a neighbor. Love, therefore, is the fulfillment of the law.
Sure, and you can have that and still have slaves and treat rape with a haphazard punishment. Apparently,
what we've been speaking about so far has been obey the law or disobey the law, rather than like fulfill the law. So that means to like be in step, be in spirit. I mean, be in a step, be in the spirit of what this law is pointing out. And because if there is any law that is God's law, and as you're even pointing to in verse 13, like, man,
all of them are God's laws, apparently.
These are true good laws. I mean,
but some people, it doesn't make an exception for good laws. It says they're all of them.
So I mean, if you would, mind you, this is a point, me and God, we're gonna have words, you know what I'm saying, when I get up there. I don't even wait till I get up there, you know what I'm saying? Paradise.
I'd beg to differ.
I be having with it now.
Okay.
This idea of like his leaders, like, nah, bro, I'm in a real season right now where I am talking about. I used to work at this church, and I no longer work at a church anymore. But I'm like, yo, we got some really trash leaders, and I wish they would do a better job. You know what I'm saying, at doing their job. And so I'm at this place where, even kind of like you said in Romans 13, where it's like, yo, these people that are in authority. And in authority in different places, like they're not in authority everywhere, but in this little place where they authority, hey man, just go with it. And I'm just like, you kidding me? So the other part of what I'm just saying is like when he says, but love does no wrong to a neighbor, I think that's a point which y'all pointed to earlier. Y'all was like, yeah, this common idea of doing well to others, that's common sense. And it's like, it's interesting how that's common sense, because that's actually what God put in every human being. You know what I'm saying? That was the internal engineering from the start, which is humans to love one another. But the way you love one another is by me loving on you. So when you sit in a place where I love on you, you loving other people is gonna be cake work.
Sure. So what if
not allowing me to love on you? You gonna act a fool at anybody any given time on your demand when you want to. And so it gets hard to figure out, yo, who's doing the loving act toward me for me, and who's just doing stuff to me for their benefit, because that ain't love. You know what I'm saying?
What do you do when you're acting in a loving way, but you're living under a regime that isn't? Like, for instance, like you, let's say you're still yourself. You're a black man in America, but let's rewind it, 70 years or so, where you're living under Jim Crow. Okay. Is there a way for you to fight for equality and still be in line with Romans 13?
Yeah, I do this one right here. See that?
I'd agree with you. So like that would be one of my options. However,
It ain't
no. Okay, but that's not what I was asking, because that doesn't seem to fall in line with the scriptures, because you'd be the evil one. It says whoever rebels against the authority. No. It says whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against God. So you would be rebelling against God.
Correct.
If you were to fight against, especially using violence.
But you know who else? What else would also be true? I would no longer be a slave though. I done got me a boat. I would have sailed away 13,000 miles. Would they want to come get me? They can. And from that point on, me and God can try to figure this thing out. Like, you know what? I killed them 200 people. Really only had to kill 40, but someone had it coming, Lord. And they were just in my way. So we can talk about that. But the idea is that I would still have to live the rest of my life. The rest of my life, like that one situation, that's one situation that I went against this, what I considered a heinous, inhumane, as you were just saying, like this horrible regime. I'm like, but I don't care. My soul and my spirit does not agree with this. I'm gone.
Sure.
Deuces. So God, me and you gonna have to figure this out on another time. Right now,
okay, sure. But like when we talk about the civil rights fighting against an oppressive government, right? The Bible's on the oppressive.
Which was evil.
So the Bible's on the oppressive government side, just to be clear.
You think the Bible is on the oppressive government side?
Yes, from the passages I just read. Like whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against.
To just from these passages, bro, it's a whole thick ass book, and them the only ones you pulled out.
Well, I mean, it's not this. I mean, it's only a short podcast, right? I could pull out more, but do you have? Could you pull out some passages that would go against? Pull out some passages that would justify what Martin Luther King did, but not generalities. Not some generalities, not like loving your neighbor and stuff. I'm talking about instances when it's talking about laws that oppress, that marginalize certain groups.
Yeah. So
when we get to the specifics, it's never on our side.
Specific, like the Bible, like what is it a manual? Like what is it? And it depends on how you approach the Bible. Like I'm not trying to go to the Bible for like a manual on what to do. Nikes or Timberlands, you know what I'm saying? Saucony's or New Balance.
Well, I wouldn't say to do that either. But when we're talking about like really serious issues, like should I be treated equally before the law? You think would at least get it right, because it mentions it. If it was like if it was just completely silent on the matter, that'd be a very different thing. Like the Bible just never mentioned slavery, and never mentioned rape, and never mentioned how to treat oppressive governments. Like if it was just silent, is this to be non-issue. However, in this instance, it is mentioned and it gets it wrong.
You brought up earlier though. I brought up, do you ever see female rape in the Bible? So you can say the Bible is silent on that, but I think the fundamental purpose of anyone raping anyone, regardless of the gender, regardless of the age, I don't think that's a loving act. So when you try to take away, we say, well, not the generalities. Well, what do you mean? That's the whole thing.
I wouldn't say that it's a loving act. Like I don't think facade with it. I don't think anybody would argue that the Bible is saying that it's a loving act. What we're talking about is the trivial way that it's treated. You pay the father a price and you just marry the woman. Like she's not accounted for at all. And the same with the
when is it okay to lie to God?
To lie to God?
Yeah, when is it okay?
I wouldn't say it's ever, according to the Bible, to lie to God or to lie at all.
And yeah, Snowfall, the last season is on right now. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And it's a lot of lying that's going on, a lot of betrayal going on, and it hurts. It hurts bad. And so we can see where there's a moral code being upheld, and the effects of when that moral code that people might agree upon, people might see it differently. And it's the fallout from us not seeing eye to eye on these moral codes. We're making a whole series out of it. So what I'm saying is, I know you all are going to different aspects of, that are, I'm gonna be honest, like these are really confusing. These are conflicting passages, like in history, period. You know what I'm saying? Let alone in literature. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, are you kidding me? What type, is this a villain? Is this a hero? Is this an anti-hero? Like, what type of person scripts this stuff? And if this were to be true, how do we wrap our mind around it? So that's what I was saying earlier, like, yo, God is gangster, like on some for real. So what I'm saying is, if I think I find there are more reasons to kind of say how God shouldn't be followed and trusted. There's a reason why I asked about lying, because God said, you lie to me, bro, off with your head. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, we see that with a gangster, with somebody else, it's just like, hey man, you lied, you get what you get. Game of Thrones, off with his head. But we'd be like, dang, I guess he was real. He was right on his word. So what I'm saying by that is, like, I think when you use the whole of scripture, like all of it, and then we try to come to a conclusion of what quality of being is God, if he exists. I mean, the main characters in it are humans, but I think a lot of what we see in the Bible is humans interacting with who? They ain't talking to themselves. You know what I'm saying? They ain't putting themselves in this situation in some ways. Like these women, to your point, like these women aren't subjecting themselves under these crazy men for no reason. So they too, and there's the passage in, what was it? I think it might be 1 Kings, it could be Judges. Oh girl, she's a virgin. Oh, the dad was a king, and he was losing the battle, and he started praying. He said, God, man, if you let me like strengthen my troops, let us win this next battle, and I promise whatever else comes through that door, I will sacrifice it unto you. His daughter walked through, and he was like, dang, I done made a promise. I got to keep my promise. Daughter, I'm gonna give you a couple weeks to go frolic around with your friends, live it up, but you got to go. I got to have that head. So I'm like, for me, that would be a passage like, that's stupid. That don't even make sense. Can you pull up, and y'all brought this up in the last episode I was listening to, when he pulled the Abraham and Isaac sacrifice. Like, all right, you can go kill her, but hey, wait, stop. Nope, dude went all the way through with it. Killed old girl. So what I'm saying is, yeah, these are other passages where it can seem like, yo, this is painting God in a horrible light. Like, dude ain't really got it under control. But that's just what I'm saying, that when you just taking different pieces of the scripture, which to your point, seem like they make no sense. If I live in a situation like this, like I said, in the 1820s, even 1920, as a black man, I'm like, bro, this is not it. I will be trying to read it. I'll try to get other understandings from it. I'll be trying to get my own freedom. I'm gonna go sail away to South America, wherever else I can get away. So I'm like, this reality does not agree with my spirit and my soul. So if I am to acknowledge God, I'm gonna figure this out if I desire to. But that's also the other part of that, is that humans don't have to, bro. But that's exactly what the Bible is. The Bible is showing how God sees humans not caring nothing about him, and God swoops in on, so hey man, what's up? What you got going on? Hey. And so I see that in the Bible, that God coming in and showing like, yo, I'm worthy to be trusted. I'm worthy to be considered and followed and loved because I love you. But I think we just see humans, whether they are like mad, disappointed, like just, God, I'm done with you. Like, none of this makes sense. You see this stuff? Who could trust you after this? And God is willing to prove his worthiness all the time. So I'm agreeing with you, man. This is some tough passages, bro.
Yeah, I would I wouldn't call it tough. I mean, it's definitely hard to swallow, considering it's coming from the Bible, and a religion that I used to think so fondly of. But to me, it's pretty simple. It's just they just get the answer wrong. To me, the reason it sounds tough is because it's coming from something that we thought was perfect, and man, it gets like kindergarten level ethics, just backwards.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to when you talk about Lecrea, so you hear Lecrea like spitting dope verses, bro, like traveling all over the world, proclaiming this truth as if like, and he's witnessing how when he hits this song, says this song quotes this verse, it creates a different type of, one, atmospheric change, and then two, you know what I'm saying, an individual straight up, like it hits somebody and it changes, and that dude is forever blown and changed by what he just witnessed. And the same has happened for me too, you know what I'm saying, and a lot of my traveling and rapping. But one of the reasons why I came off tour, because I also experienced some stuff that was like, bro, this is ridiculous, bro. And I'm like, which is one is how a kid can come up to you after a conference or after a festival and just like share their whole life story. And then you got somebody that's been rocking with them for 2-3 years, sharing the gospel, like being legit loving to them. Ain't nothing goofy or weird about it, being straight up love to them. And they don't release none of that. And I'm like, bro, what is tripping people up? What is keeping people, one, from either connecting with the gospel? I wanted to investigate that. Like, they're not even trusting the people that are bringing the gospel, that are messengers of the gospel. They're like, they ain't trusting none of that either. And it came back to what you were saying, that Lecrea was in his song, he was pointing out, bro, it's these people's living conditions that's keeping them from connecting to this quote unquote holy God. So maybe if we try to work with them and not just completely remove these obstacles, because that's the idea when you talk about slavery. I don't think God is trying to remove the obstacle of slavery. What he's trying to do,
clearly,
he's trying to help us fix our sight on him and what he does. And so when we keep tossing away love like it's a petty thing, you're like, man, fuck all that. You see what evil is doing, and you don't want to focus on love? Oh man, that's all type of wrong. And so I think we're going to continue to see a cycle of that as we see in the book of Judges. It's just like, bro, when you see humans going for looking out for their own human interest, their own interest, this is what you're gonna get, and it's gonna look horrible. So, as a person who was the proclaimer of the gospel and a demonstrator of the gospel, and when I'm in these churches, bro, let me tell you, bro, oh my goodness, I'm like, bro, y'all ain't hitting these folks with that real truth. Y'all got to stop this lane jump, bro. These folks gonna have legit problems 2-3 years from now, or when this white lady say something crazy at the side of her neck, or when this white dude get up on here, BLM and all that, and Candace Owens and all that, like, some folk gonna lose their wig and they gonna start using one of these things right here. You know, when the police get to beating up on Tyree Nichols, hey man, make that make sense to me. So that's what I'm saying, in the sense of like, bro, God sees it all. I'm trying to understand it all. And what I'm for real trying to tell you is like, folks don't show up to practice. They're not shooting their free throws. They're not getting in his word. They're not praying with God. They're not struggling with God. They're not wrestling with God, even if they acknowledge him. So for people who don't acknowledge him, I'm just like, bro, I see it. Damn, man, I'm talking too long, ranted, because I meant to talk about other points you said, but my fault. It was just a Lecrea
It's all
thing.
good. I was one of the we get kind of late. We gotta wrap up the show. My family gotta I gotta feed the kid because she just walked out the room. I don't know if you can see her, but like yeah, man. I wanted to appreciate you for coming on the show, man, and just being willing to talk to us, especially on such short notice. I think I hit you up Monday. And so you were quick. So
you know, I'm going to see your swole neck anyway, man. I was like, yeah, boy, I want to see how thick that man neck is today. You stay on swole. Yes, sir.
Man. Yeah, man. So bro, yeah, we like to have you back on sometime near future.
Hey, yeah, man, don't be pulling that slick stuff, man. Give me some time to send me some links too.
All right. I'm gonna send you a video I think you might enjoy. It was put out by a former Christian that's turned atheist. He has a lot bigger follower than us. But it was called Church Services Are Designed to Influence You.
Okay.
And it's a pretty interesting like psychoanalysis on how church services work. And I think it may kind of speak on what you were just talking about, where you have that emotional connection or that connection with people. Like after, you know, going and making a performance and something like that, because music is a really, really good way to connect with people. And if you grow up in a particular environment, or even if you like get accustomed to a particular environment, you notice that you make connections with people. So when, you know, like the way I grew up with the music I listen to, if I hear a song, it may make me nostalgic to listen to that music again, or it may make me feel a certain way. But doing so can be a way to manipulate people. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, and I'm not saying that's what people are doing all the times. I'm just saying it's a really good way to prime people to get in a certain mindset by listening to music in general. So I think that might be something you might be interested in, like looking to, especially because you're a musical artist. It's not like, obviously, like I've listened to your music. I've listened to Lecrea, but in general, music is a really easy way to kind of like prime people's emotions. And when you go and you're the artist, and then when you go and you speak to these people that kind of have that emotional feeling towards that music, I imagine it's a really strong connection that you get almost immediately, which must be really cool. But in general, it's pretty interesting to look at it from like an objective point of view, where you have people kind of using this as a method of kind of guiding a situation. So I'm gonna send you that if you're interested. But I just want to thank you for coming on.
Have you back on sometime and we talk about it.
For sure. Yeah, because manipulation is real. Gang, gang.
Well, appreciate you coming on, my man.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Blessings, fellas. Peace.
All right, my man. Be good, brother.